More than 2 years ahead of the 2024 election, some progressive Democrats are already looking at the possibility of a primary challenge to President Biden. His approval has dropped about 13 points since he took office nearly 1 year ago, according to the Real Clear Politics average of polls. One of my next guests told Politico, quote, he's deeply unpopular, he's old as bleep, he's largely been ineffective, and I think he'll probably get demolished in the midterms. Let's bring in Corbin Trent, former communications director for Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, former national staffer for Bernie Sanders' past two presidential campaigns, and the founder of the No Excuses PAC. Also joined by Jamu Green, former Democratic National Committee chair candidate and founder and CEO of WeDefendTruth.org. Great to have both of you with us today. Corbin, obviously those are strong words. What's behind them?
Well, I mean, for one thing, polling is behind that. We're seeing my version of the midterm outcome is not just my version. We're seeing right now that the polls show that Republicans have a slight edge, and that may be getting worse. We see that Biden's approval ratings going down, and it's moving in the wrong direction. I think that what we're seeing right now is a Democratic Party that's done a whole lot for the American people and then has largely been unable to articulate what it's doing and what it's done. And I think that's a real challenge.
And who would you expect those primary challengers to be, Corbin?
I think if anybody, sort of traditional were to pop up, then it's going to be a really wide variety of people. But I mean, you've got a guy that's pushing 80, right? There wasn't even certainty that he was going to run for a second term when he first ran. So I think there's going to be, if we see a midterm outcome where Democrats lose the House and, God forbid, the Senate too, I think that all bets are off, and we'll see the Democratic Party trying to go in maybe a different direction and sort of truncate its losses.
Very interesting. Jamu, Kamala Harris would be sort of the obvious choice in most scenarios in terms of that go-to person. She's had some struggles. PR-wise, and she's had a number of people who've left her team, 7 of them, over the last 6 months. Do you think she is a viable potential replacement for President Biden if that turns out to be the case?
Well, first, Martha, I think we have to start with the reality, which is that there will not be a serious challenger to President Biden for the Democratic nomination. Point blank, period. Anyone who says or speculates anything different is basically how we look at this down in Texas. All hat, no cattle. And so I just have to say to Corbin, bless your heart. I understand that, this is the one thing that folks on the far left and far right agree with Republican challengers in 2024. They want this to be a story. It's not a story. We are seeing a record economic recovery. We are seeing the Great Recession, as folks are calling it, is being driven, fueled by American exceptionalism, as so many Americans are starting businesses under the Biden administration. Yes, we've got work to do in 2022 to keep the House, to keep the Senate. Yes, there will probably be fringe candidates who jump into the race, and that's going to be for name recognition. That's going to be for an attempt for relevancy. But there's not going to be a serious contender. Vice President Harris is not going to be
we have obviously some pretty tough jobs numbers today, and the polling that Corbin points to is real. You can say you don't care about polling, but the Real Clear number we showed is an aggregate of a lot of different polls that are out there. Corbin, what's your response to Jamu? She thinks you're all hat and no cattle.
It reminds me a little bit of when I heard people talk about how what they could guarantee is that Donald Trump would not be the nominee for the Republican Party. We can't predict the future. We know that for a fact. Hopefully you're right, Jamu. Hopefully we'll see. We are in a great economic position, but we're unable, I think, to sell that to the American people. That's not the sense that people are getting for whatever reason. And specifically on the economy, which I think we're doing a great job at as a party and as a nation, we're getting beaten. I mean, I think 57% of people polled think that Biden's doing a poor job. So That's with record stock market, record jobs numbers. That's, and still we're trailing in people's minds. So that's my concern is what the American people are seeing and feeling.
I'm curious what
and
both
yes,
of you think.
we
I want
have
to get a quick
tell
thought
a
on this.
better story.
Go back. Wait 1 second, Jamo. So Ted Kennedy ran against Jimmy Carter. I think there's some parallels in this scenario. But I don't see a Ted Kennedy in the list of people that are sort of floated at this point. And we can put those up. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Stacey Abrams, Mitch Landrieu, Cory Booker, a bunch of names on that list. Corbin, can you envision a scenario or a candidate who could create a situation, which was a tremendously difficult situation for Democrats in 1980, where Ted Kennedy said, you know what, I don't think this guy can pull it off. I'm going to run against him.
I mean, I'm imagining a presidential cycle like we had in 96 and 92, where we had third-party candidates that allowed President Clinton to win Tennessee twice. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen in 22 and 24, obviously, but what I see is that we're not connecting. Right now, the American people are divided in how they feel about the economy. They're divided in how they feel about how we're handling the COVID pandemic. They're divided in general, and I think that we need to do a better job of uniting this country. And for whatever reason, President Biden's not been able to do that to this point. I think one of the problems is that we've tried to align ourselves too closely with the Republican Party that has very little vision, very little agenda. I mean, 13 Republicans out of 212 voted for this bipartisan infrastructure, bridges, roads, internet. I mean, if you can't get behind that, what can you get behind? So maybe we'll see the Democratic administration will kick it into gear, and we'll lead this country forward and smash it in 22.
We'll see. Very interesting to talk to you both, and it's going to be a big midterm year, so I hope you'll come back. Corbin Trent, thank you very much. Jamo Green, thank you as well.